Good afternoon, and welcome to Lyceum number 2 from GCS, Guilford County Schools. We're very happy today to have with us Lauren Smith, who is the Learning Director from Triad Stage, who will be here talking about a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, and that we actually recently got a grant to implement more of in our district. So arts integration, we're very happy to be able to present this topic to everyone who is watching, to those who are in our audience, and to those who will be watching later on as this is produced and put on our YouTube channel. And look forward to fielding any questions that you have about this topic, and I know Lauren will as well. And so without any further ado, we'd like to welcome to the stage Ms. Lauren Smith.
My name is Lauren Smith, as Nathan said, and I am the Learning Director at Triad Stage here in Greensboro. Today I'm going to share a little bit about the practice of arts integration in school settings. So what that is, why we should maybe care about it, and the successes and potential for this practice that I have been so excited to see here in Guilford County Schools since I relocated to the Triad region. I'm a pretty new North Carolina transplant. I just got here in July to start this job at Triad Stage, which I'm very excited about. So I'm excited to be sharing this practice that really brought me here with you all today. So when I talk about the field of arts education, the most familiar association tends to be with sequential fine arts, or courses and experiences that are devoted to students learning and developing skills in an arts classroom. These experiences might include band, orchestra, or chorus. They might include drama and theater. They might include ballet, jazz, or modern dance. They also might include drawing, painting, sculpture, or other kinds of visual art, including digital media arts. These types of offerings are critical to providing a well-rounded experiential education for students in pre-kindergarten all the way through high school. They complement areas of study like language arts, social studies, math, and science, and they often open pathways for students who may not connect with traditional school structure or instructional styles. The arts helped find for these students who may not connect, a space of success and belonging within school. Both drama and band were key areas of my experience in K-12 education, how I found my place as an elementary, middle, and high school student. And the things that I learned from these courses and activities are still with me. They continue to guide my decisions and plans and dreams as an arts educator today. This afternoon, however, I'm going to talk a little bit about another area of arts education that may be less immediately familiar. This area, which is simultaneously an instructional practice for teachers, as well as a learning experience for students, is called arts integration. As the name suggests, arts integration focuses on integrating the arts into other things, in this case, other areas of the curriculum. I'm going to talk through the Kennedy Center's definition for arts integration, because the Kennedy Center is one of the foremost national organizations that pursues and advocates for arts integration, and because this particular definition encapsulates the essence of this practice that makes me believe in it so deeply. So, arts integration it is an approach to teaching. So arts integration is not one strategy. It's not one thing that you do once and then leave behind. It is something that as a teacher you can really use in all areas of your lesson planning, of the way that you facilitate lessons. It is an approach to the way that you convey information. Now, if you're saying, oh, I'm not an artist, I'm not sure that I can do that, I promise you can, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. But this really is something that is a holistic approach to teaching and working with young people. In arts integration, students construct and demonstrate their understanding through an art form. So arts integration is inherently a type of active learning. So students are constructing, they are working together, they are building their understanding, and they're also demonstrating it. They're showing what they know through an art form. And that could be music, it could be visual art, it could be theater, or dance, or digital media, any of them. But they are demonstrating and showing, yes, I understand this, and here's the way that it applies to me. In arts integration, students also engage in a creative process. So this is not a worksheet and textbook kind of instruction. Although worksheets and textbooks may help prepare students to be ready to include different practices and different information within arts integration really asks them to move through a creative process where they are actively making something that either didn't exist before or is different because they have come to it. This creative process helps to connect an art form and another subject area. And again, that could be math, science, English, social studies, any of them, really. You can also integrate multiple art forms together. So perhaps you're bringing theater into your visual art class. That's also completely a possibility. But we're thinking about bringing together those two things that may not normally live in the same space. And arts integration always meets evolving objectives in both the art form that you've chosen to work with and the curricular content that you're working with as well. This last sentence, the meets evolving objectives in both, is the most important part of this definition to me. True arts integration, where it's being done really effectively, helps students to develop multiple kinds of skills and knowledge simultaneously. It also helps them build frames of reference and active participatory experiences so that they can access, replicate, and practice those skills and that knowledge beyond their time in the lesson or beyond their time even in the classroom. If you don't consider yourself an artist, or if, like me, you'd rather run screaming out of this auditorium or away from your computer than perform a monologue, believe me, I'm with you, there are skills that are inherent to the arts that are applicable across a wide range of disciplines. Some of your best resources in your schools may be your art teacher friends, whether they're teaching theater, they're teaching music, they're teaching visual art. They may be able to help you with some of those skills if those are not things that come naturally to you, but I promise that you can bring in those ideas whether or not you identify as an artist. My goal personally, when I use arts integration, whether it's working with students in residencies that I teach or working with teachers in professional development, both of which I've done quite a bit of, my goal is always to have the practice of arts integration supplement existing goals and benchmarks, including state standards, district frameworks, whatever teachers and students are already working on learning, I want arts integration to support those goals. While arts integration does require learning in a new way for students and may require learning some new instructional practices on the part of teachers, I really don't believe that arts integration should ever feel like one more thing, or one more thing to check off a list, or one other accountability measure. It really should be something that is an authentic learning experience for everyone involved. So as an example of the way that arts integration can serve multiple goals and work within existing frameworks, I'm going to talk a little bit about the 21st century skills. So these skills, while they are perhaps most immediately recognizable as words that are in the educational zeitgeist, and we may be very tired of hearing about them, these words are really key to students' experiences, not only for who they're going to become in the future, but for where they are now as young people. And I think about these skills as the answers to a few different questions. And before I jump into that, I just want to share those questions with you. So I think about what is it that we hope students can do? What do we want them to learn how to do? And what are the skills that we hope that their experience in school is helping them to build? I also think about why are those skills, whatever they are for us as teachers, why are they necessary in both students' lives now as young people, as well as in their future as future leaders and participants in our society? So when I think about those questions, these 4 skills come to mind. So creativity. I want students to be able to generate new ideas, find innovative solutions to problems, and improve on ideas that are already in place, whether those ideas are technological devices or agricultural practices or social and political systems. I want them to be able to look at what's there and find a better way to do it. I also want them to be prepared to create and respond to ideas and opportunities that we as adults today in 2017 can't even imagine. Collaboration. I want students to be able to respectfully and productively work together on projects both in school and beyond. I also want them to be able to foster atmospheres of inclusivity and collectivity in their social circles, their school and their home environments, and their future careers. This might be the most important thing that I hope that they can do in our current world. I also hope that they can collaborate not only with people from their neighborhoods, their cities, their states, their countries, but I hope they can learn to work with people from all over the world who have diverse backgrounds and experiences and ideas. In terms of communication, I want students not only to have great ideas, I have yet to be in a classroom of students that didn't have great ideas, but I want them to be able to share those ideas with their classroom community, with their colleagues, their friends, their families, their elected officials, their community leaders. I hope that they can convey their meaning effectively to whoever they think it will have the most impact for. And I want them to be able to do that not only verbally or in writing, but also through visual and technological means. Lastly, critical thinking. I want students to be able to find new solutions to both age-old problems and those that have been newly discovered or created through rapid technological or population growth. So, all of these are great goals, right? I think we can agree that there are some valid things that come within there. And these are ones, again, that we've heard a lot of times. They come through every curriculum framework, they're in every article, they're all over the place. And they're important, but they're also sort of lofty. And they can be challenging to achieve. And so with those things in mind, I also want to take some time to deliberately connect those goals specifically to the arts and the way that the arts being infused into our classrooms can help achieve those kind of lofty goals. So in terms of creativity, this is probably the most direct connection, right? So of course, the arts ask students to be creative. They ask them to make things anew. But more than that, the arts ask for us not only to create something out of nothing, not to take just a blank piece of paper and make something, they also ask us to build on an existing foundation, adapting and expanding ideas from people and schools of thought that came before us. So in order to make that piece of visual art, we need to understand the history and all of the different practices that go into that piece. Additionally, the arts help us to practice failure. And that may sound counterintuitive. Do we really want our students to be failing? But a key element of being able to generate new ideas on a regular basis is being able to be confident enough to try something that you know may not work. It also means being resilient enough to learn from failure and try again. The arts and their focus on a creative process, not just a product, help us ask ourselves to try new things boldly, understanding that, they might fail, but it trains our brains and our spirits to use failure as a springboard to action, to even greater personal and creative growth. And the students that I work with, whether those are in classes that I am teaching that are specifically about theater, or they're students in classes where I'm working using arts integration, a lot of students that I'm working with currently are so afraid to fail that sometimes they're also afraid to try. And arts integration is a way that we can ask students to be creative and try things that may not work and try again until they find something that does. Additionally, this leads right into collaboration, because despite the stereotypes that I find really frustrating about lonely painters or writers that only work in solitude, the arts are inherently collaborative. And being collaborative, working together, is one of the ways that we get over some of that fear of failure. It's one of the ways that we learn that we can find a solution whenever we ask for help, we ask other people. So that painter who's lonely is always gleaning inspiration from the outside world. They're always receiving feedback and mentorship, and they're working with galleries and museums to exhibit their work. Writers work with agents, editors, interview subjects, and initial readers to get their work ready to publish too. And theater and music, while they ask for considerable work on the part of the individual, also most frequently happen in collaboration. Even a solo pianist often performs with an orchestra. A play doesn't happen with the actors alone, and even the actors themselves have to connect and work with each other to make their performances compelling. So the arts, by their very nature, by their very presence in the classroom, ask students to practice the skill of collaboration. Additionally, communication. The essence of the arts lives in creative expression and communication of ideas and feelings and ideas and experiences with an audience. So not just me up here talking to myself, but also me talking to all of you, right? And a student performing, whether that's showing their idea through an art piece or through a song that they've written, right? So when we think about communication, the arts have that at their core. And lastly, critical thinking. I imagine that there are those of you out there somewhere who may be concerned because careers in the arts have a reputation of being unstable and low pay. While this is not always or even often the case, although as someone who has a career in the arts, there can be a grain of truth to that, let me tell you that there is no greater way to hone critical problem-solving skills than having to produce art pieces of whatever form they may take on a limited budget. Perhaps more interestingly, however, than a budget, the arts challenge us to tell stories that we already know. Classic stories about the human condition, things that involve elements like love, rivalry, jealousy, loss, elation, and overcoming obstacles that we didn't think that we would ever meet. These are classic elements of the human story, and the arts ask us to find a way to tell it that's new. It asks us to use new media and new forms at every turn. Additionally, the arts ask us to think critically about the world around us, seeking an ever more inclusive representation of people, especially those who've been historically marginalized in our compositions and on our stages. So with that, right, the arts align with 21st century skills, they do all these great things, that's fantastic, but what does that really mean for teachers who teach in non-arts content areas? What does it really look like to integrate the arts with other content and curriculum? So for this, since we have some folks in the audience, and if you're watching online, I encourage you to take a pause in just a moment, and you can join us as well. If we could get the house lights to come up to half, that would be great. I'm going to take us through a short arts integration activity. It shouldn't take more than about 5 minutes, but I would like for you to experience that personally. It is not a theater activity. I promise you do not have to get up here, and you don't have to talk to anyone besides the person sitting next to you, okay? So in a moment, I am going to bring you a piece of aluminum foil, and that is going to be your medium that you're going to be using. We're going to make an aluminum foil sculpture, okay? And while I'm bringing those around, I'd love for you just to take a look at these 4 words and think about which one sticks out to you the most. So you might gravitate towards one that's really exciting or is a big priority for you, or you might gravitate towards one that you're really having a hard time with in your work or in your life right now, something you're struggling with. So I'd love for you just to take a moment and take a look at those words and internally decide which one you would like to think about, okay? With your piece of aluminum foil, what you're going to do is you're going to have about 2 minutes. Okay, I'm going to time you, so this is not a long, this is probably not going to be your masterpiece forever and ever, amen. But you're going to take your piece of foil, and I'd love for you to just think about that word that you chose. And you're going to have about 2 minutes to create a 3-dimensional model, or a sculpture, if that word works for you, of that word. What does that word mean to you? Made with aluminum foil, okay? So take about 2 minutes, and I'll do it along with you as well. So I'll be in it with you. But go ahead and start that process. They don't have to be perfect, they don't have to be beautiful, they can be whatever you'd like them to be, and we will also all know that you had 2 minutes and a piece of aluminum foil, so we will be gentle on each other, I promise. I was doing this in a classroom. I might do it with music so it wasn't so awkward with the silence and whatnot, but you're making it through. right, and take about another 30 seconds, kind of finish up with whatever you're working on. Excellent. So wherever you are, you can go ahead and just find a place to pause. Again, we know that this may not be your masterpiece forever. But what I would love for you to do is go ahead and turn to someone who's sitting next to you. Leanne, if you're able to, would you mind being a partner here? Yep. Would that be okay? Great. And so here's what you're going to do. With your partner, you're going to take a moment right now to decide who is going to share their model first and who is going to respond to that model first. Okay? So just take a second to decide that. Give me a thumbs up whenever you've got a decision. Okay. Great. So, if you are sharing your model first, I'm just going to invite you to find a way that you can kind of hold it out, make sure that your partner can see it clearly. And then if you're responding, here are the steps you're going to take, okay? I'd love for you to spend at least a good 10 seconds, if not a little bit longer, looking at your partner's model before you talk about it, okay? So really look in terms of deep observation. What do you notice about what they've created? And you're going to share 3 observations. These are not judgments. This is not, it's beautiful, it's ugly. It's certainly not, it's ugly. We're not doing that. But it's, you want to think about just what do you see? What is present in your partner's model? And you're going to share those 3 words or 3 phrases with them. Okay? So start there, and whenever you have had a chance to make it through that with your first person, just go ahead and give me a thumbs up, and I'll give you the next set of things. Thank you. We've got a couple of thumbs up. Great, all right. So now what I would love for you to do is, if you were the artist who was sharing their model, so if you were the one who your partner was responding to, you can take a moment to respond to what your partner said. So you might decide that you want to tell them a little bit about what you were thinking about or what word you chose, or you don't have to do that at all. It's completely up to you whether you want to share anything about the piece that you created. Once the artist has a chance to share something, if they'd like to, you're just going to flip-flop and do the exact same thing. So the person who shared the first time will respond to the second person's model, okay? And once you've gone through all of that, go ahead and just give me a thumbs up so that I know that you're ready to move on. Take about 30 seconds or so to finish up. And you're sharing those observations, and then the artist will have the last word about their work if they would like to. Good. All right, awesome. So you just participated in arts integration. You didn't know you were going to do that today, but you did. This is an arts integrated activity. I use this all the time. I use it with students who are I think I've used it as young as in 3rd grade, and I use it all the way up through college. And obviously, I also use it with adults. So this is one of my favorites. It's a very simple arts integration strategy, but you just did it. Magic. So if you, let's try this. I'd love for you to go ahead and turn to your partner and think about, as you're sharing with your partner, just think about if what you're saying is something you'd be willing to share with me as well. You don't have to say it loud enough that the thing can pick you up. I'll repeat it and no one will see your face. But I'd love for you just to turn to your partner and share with them for a moment, what was your experience of this activity like? So what did it feel like to be in it? How did you react to it? And did anything surprise you about your your reaction to it? Did anything about the activity or the way that it went, did anything surprise you, and if so, what? So what was your experience like, and if anything surprised you, what was it, and kind of how were you surprised? My least favorite thing in the world is to stop conversations, so go ahead and just find a place to wrap up wherever you are. Can always be continued. And is there anyone who would be willing to share, and you can say no, you do have the option, it's completely fine, but is there anyone who would be willing to share one thing that you and your partner talked about? Just one thing that came up in your conversation? Yeah?
We both felt like we were a little apprehensive, which is nice to feel like as a teacher to be put back into the situations and feel that, it was so open-ended and there's, 4 great options that you can choose from, number 1, and then what to make. It's just a little bit of anxiety and frustration.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's also something I hear from students a lot, is that, it made me nervous. Like, it was really open-ended. I'm not sure if there was a right answer or a wrong answer, right? There are a lot of choices that you're making, and there is a time limit as well. So there may be that sense of like, this is frustrating or scary, or I'm apprehensive about it. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? Any other experiences that you'd like to share? Yeah.
You said that it's nicely low risk.
Okay. Yeah, so it does, in some ways, even though it may produce those kind of feelings, it's not like I was like, great, you come up here and tell us about why your sculpture is the best, right? So there is an element of it being low risk, even though it may still kind of produce those feelings, it might be a chance to kind of push back against those and try it out. Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's a really important part of, especially if you're asking students who are in, say, a science class who may have zero interest or zero experience with the arts, to be able to give them a chance to say, no, it's okay for you to try this. I want you to try it. There's no wrong answer. We're just going to be working on building those skills. So that idea of risk is really, the arts can be scary. And as an art person myself, that's like very strange to say, but it is true, especially for students who may not have that background experience from before. Yeah, I appreciate that. Anything else? Any other things that came up for you? Okay, great. So both of those kind of experiences that you commented on, both that sense of apprehension and really kind of pushing out of the comfort zone a little bit, that's something that I do intend to do for students. I do intend for arts integration. I don't want it to be easy. I do want it to involve an element of risk or an element of, I'm going to try something that maybe I haven't done before. But we're also looking at that idea of that this is a safe way to try it. And this is a way that I can kind of show my information about, in this case, really this is a vocabulary activity. Right? For those of you, again, who are watching this or who are in the audience, you know what these words mean. You have been probably handed them more times than you care to think about. But for students who might be first approaching these words, this is, it's a simple way to kind of gauge vocabulary. So moving through that, those are exactly the things that I hope happen whenever arts integration is in the classroom. And I feel like there are also things that I see happen a lot, that those goals are achievable whenever we are working in that space. So I want to share a couple of other examples of what arts integration can look like in classrooms. So I have some pictures up here that I'll also be referencing. So arts integration can look like a lot of things. In fact, it's sort of open-ended the way that the arts are in general. It can look like high school students, is in the upper right-hand corner here, expressing their thoughts and opinions and questions about an informational text through visual art, translating their understandings between those the verbal representation within the text and visual symbol systems and that's a process that's also proven to help retention of information. It can look like middle school students who are writing monologues or journal entries from the perspective of a character from an important historical moment, which develops social-emotional and empathy skills while also getting a deep dive into all of the multiple perspectives that shape the course of history. It can look like elementary students creating a dance that symbolizes the different stages of the water cycle, or the different states of matter, or stepping into role as pieces of tile, which we see here in this bottom picture, of tile that's going to be used to tile the principal's office, as they're gaining an understanding of area and perimeter. Arts integration can also look and sound like students writing songs or creating, performing, and recording public service announcements about mathematical vocabulary, both of which can help their own learning and that can be shared with other students as well. In each of these examples as well as the one you participated in, students are actively engaged in the curricular material that they're working to master, as well as deepening and sharing their understanding around those topics. They are also moving through a creative process, an ongoing one, that asks them to represent their understanding in a way that may be different from what they're often experiencing in that particular class. Expressing understanding in multiple ways also creates multiple pathways for them to be able to access that information and put it to use in the future. Additionally, while I am focusing especially on the creative process that's at the heart of arts integration, and what makes it both effective and engaging for students, arts integration does involve the creation of something, a creative product, whether that's a performance or a physical piece, that can be used as an assessment and can be used to check students' understanding. Teachers who use arts integration can see students' understanding through murals they create, songs that they write, monologues they perform, or dances that they share. So while I'm proposing an approach to teaching that may sound really different from the kinds of accountability measures that we all are working with within public education, there is also a way to serve those goals while also increasing student engagement, which is one of my favorite things about arts integration, is again that it can serve the goals that are already there while expanding the possibilities for students and the ways for them to engage with the information. So again, all of that sounds great, and you just made a model. How exciting. But does all of this actually work? Does it work in the ways that we need it to work in terms of public education? And the answer is that research says that it does. Research says that arts integration is really effective. Arts integration boosts literacy and reading skills, as well as increasing math achievement, which are two of the biggest goals, especially in a K-5 space that we're really working on. It increases student engagement and attendance, helps to make school cultures more inclusive, and helps students develop skills such as perseverance and teamwork that serve as long-term indicators of success in college and beyond. The arts are also a key tool that school districts are often using to work towards educational equity through closing the achievement gap, which is one of the greatest challenges of public education, both in this community and in this country. I said earlier that you can integrate the arts as someone who does not immediately identify as an artist, and you can. That does not, however, take away from the value of partnerships between arts teachers and non-arts teachers, or teachers and teaching artists, or artists that come into the classroom, or arts organizations and schools and communities that are seeking to incorporate the arts into curriculum, potentially for the first time. As a teaching artist and a professional development facilitator in cities around the country, I've seen the possibilities and incredible opportunities that arts integration has offered to the communities where I've been lucky to work. I've often been there as a community partner to teachers and schools and districts, coming in from the outside and really learning the way that their school cultures work, learning the way that their accountability systems work, and finding ways that the arts can support those goals. As a community partner, I've also found that arts integration works best under some specific circumstances, when expectations are clear, when instructional strategies and professional development are aligned with existing goals instead of introducing a whole bunch of new goals, and most importantly, when the approach to integrating the arts builds on a strong foundation, which are the incredible assets present within a school community, specifically in terms of students, and even more specifically in terms of the teachers who are in those classrooms. I'm talking to you as someone who, like I said, is very new to North Carolina and very new to the larger Greensboro community. In the short time I've been here, though, since July, I've had the enormous privilege of working with theater teachers and music teachers from across GCS, as well as with students in various courses in several different middle schools. While this is just the tip of the iceberg for what I hope for in collaboration between Triad Stage and GCS, I've been overwhelmed in being here by the commitment and the tenacity and the intelligence and the compassion and the resourcefulness of both teachers and students in GCS. I couldn't be more proud or excited to live in a community where public schools have these kinds of assets and are excited about incorporating the arts into their curriculum. In my role at Triad Stage and as a citizen of Guilford County, I'm eager to support the ongoing efforts of students and teachers in arts-based learning and in arts integration in Guilford County schools. The atmosphere here is perfect for this work and the possibilities are endless. Thank you. But these are a few of the ones that I use to cite some of the research statistics and outcomes in this presentation.
All right, so the first question, and I probably have some controversial questions.
That's fine.
I see with arts integration, I have heard arts educators before say, this is just a ploy to find ways to get classroom teachers to teach the arts as a way to get rid of us.
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting for me to be actually, because primarily I've worked with non-arts teachers, I will say that, in professional development spaces, and also I've mostly been teaching residencies in English classrooms, social studies classrooms, that kind of thing, for sure. And the thing about that, while I said it's possible to do this if you're not an artist, it takes a lot more work to work up to that space where you're able to do this effectively. And that's actually where I see arts teachers, regardless of your discipline, I see arts teachers as a key component to arts integration working in schools. Arts integration approaches work better whenever an entire school is doing the same thing. So when everybody gets the same PD, everybody has the same goals, the principal's on board, like ideally that's how it happens. And in those cases, arts teachers really serve as leaders. And that's not to say that I want arts teachers to have more work and that it's suddenly your job to figure out how to teach math using theater, because that's a hard ask and you have a lot to do already. But I think that the specific skills that arts teachers bring to the table in terms of arts integration are really crucial to helping a school succeed and to building that school culture and to being the person whenever they're, if someone says like, I just don't see why this is valuable. I don't see why it matters. I don't see why theater has a place anywhere. A theater teacher being able to say, well, you know what my kids are able to do? You know what we're doing that's working really well? Here's how that might connect to your content. So I think that space of leadership is something that I'm really excited, about. And also I do think though that you bring up an important thing to note is that because we're funding arts integration or arts integrated teaching does not mean that we should not be funding sequential fine arts. Both of those are key in my kind of definition of an arts-rich school and of a school that is really offering students a well-rounded education that includes the arts. I think that they should be building those skills in sequential fine arts and then being able to, oh, you mean I can use that thing I learned in music class whenever I'm in social studies? That's amazing, right? So we're making those connections between those areas, not isolating them in one, either non-arts or arts content area.
Great. So, I'm just going to take this.
Great.
Pass it. So, I would say, you also, while you were talking there, brought up a great point in that it takes a school-wide collaborative to get involved in that. To be totally honest, here in Guilford County Schools, arts integration, schools that were were built on arts integration, i.e. the A+ program. A lot of folks, you know what I'm talking about with the A+, have been largely unsuccessful. And there are some magnet schools that sometimes serve as magnet in name only. And I know that this is going to be on YouTube, and I don't care, I'm saying it. What could you see, and I know you're new to North Carolina, so I'm not specifically saying about these schools that I'm talking about, but I'm sure that you've seen it before in the past where arts magnets or A+ schools sort of turn into magnet in name only. What could you say that we could do to stem that off some?
Well, I'm going to say something that may be a little bit controversial, which is that I'm not necessarily advocating for the creation of magnets. I actually think I think magnet schools, in my vision of how things work, and I am not a teacher and I am not an administrator, so you all know this better than I do. But I think sometimes magnet schools can also kind of consolidate the resources or the commitment that we have to a specific practice in one school, where actually everyone needs that thing. And I hope that magnet schools serve as a model of this is how it can work and this is how it can work elsewhere. So that's one thing I would say, is I'm not necessarily advocating for saying that, this high school is going to become an arts integration high school. I'm actually advocating for saying I would love to see arts integration being used by teachers in every high school, if that's, when that's possible. Now, that's not to say that you can do that all immediately, but in terms of what the research says, in terms of how you head that off, so there's so we all know professional development, 91% of teachers say that professional development is largely useless. That is a statistic, I'm not making it up. It's the reality that most professional development is not effective, that it feels like a waste of time, it's not applicable in the classroom. So one of the ways, arts-based professional development pushes against traditional professional development in a couple of ways. Namely, it's experiential, so you have to do it in order to understand it. Some of the folks in the room said that, it's interesting to be in the perspective of a student, to be put back in, in that space so I could think about it from their perspective. Arts integrated professional development, in my opinion, if it's done well, does that. So that's one thing it does. But in terms of effective professional development in general, so using the arts integration as a model for teachers to learn, it should be intentional, it should be ongoing, and it should be systemic. That comes from Thomas Guskey. So intentional meaning we have a goal and a plan, and we're going to use the arts to get there. Ongoing meaning it's not just once. You don't just have one workshop, right? You don't just have one day where you do a 3-hour session and then you never talk about it again, which happens frighteningly frequently, and the teachers in the room will not be surprised by that. And then it needs to be systemic, which is that piece of, ideally, if you're, again, if this is an approach that you're excited about, that you want to have work in your school, it's ideal if many people, whether that's, the entire 4th grade is going to do that, or that it's the entire school who's going to do that. It tends to be more effective whenever there's a community of people who are working together, who can help troubleshoot if things aren't going well, or who can, help kind of brainstorm or work together. Professional learning communities can also be really helpful in that way. So I think that in terms of moving forward, I would hope that that kind of research, and it's almost more about making the professional development be engaging and useful and ongoing and systemic in these different ways than it is about arts specifically. But I think that arts as a, because again, for all the reasons I've said, it's engaging, it's interactive, it's creative, it can tie into students' interests. It can help to sort of stem that thing that may happen after, we've done it for 2 years and then we're on to the next initiative. I think it also takes real commitment, and in this case of this grant that you've got from the Department of Education, it takes real commitment and real funding and real time to make those things work. And so I think that until there is a large-scale commitment to this, it's a lot harder to make that work, which is another reason why doing it on sort of a district-wide level may be more effective than doing like one school is going to, obviously there's benefit to a pilot and then expanding, but saying, well, this one school is going to do it and nobody else is, often won't work as well.
So arts integration, when we use the term, you can almost hear, and I know I'm using the term here, it may not be appropriate, but you can almost hear the eye rollers from arts educators, and legitimately so. Because for so many years, when you hear someone talk about arts integration, it always means, well, you can't always say always, it most of the time means all the arts teachers quit teaching what you're teaching and start teaching what everyone else is teaching, literacy, math, science. So what do you say to those people when they're going to turn this video on that says arts integration and they say, oh, not again, I'm just another ploy for me to stop teaching what I'm teaching? What do you say to those people? And say to those people who may be watching who are not arts educators.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, we should have put this part at the beginning because they may not be watching anymore in that case. But, so for arts teachers first, I actually don't generally see arts integration as in a school-wide approach as a big shift in what arts educators are doing. This is not actually me saying if you're teaching music, you should be writing songs about social studies. It's not really that, although you certainly can. And I think the collaboration between teachers is rarely a bad thing, especially if students can be getting the same content in two different places. But I actually see arts integration as more so of social studies teachers. You're teaching, you're teaching the history of, God, in Texas, it's always the history of Texas. Like no matter what grade level, it's always the history of Texas. Yes, pretty much. So, but whatever that content is, I know we focus a lot on science in the second and third grades, so cycles, things like the water cycle, or the way that the planets rotate, those kinds of things. It's actually saying to the classroom teacher who's teaching science of like, here's another approach that you can use that might help your students understand the states of matter and how they change between them, and be able to remember that a little bit more effectively. Than it is saying to the arts teachers, you need to be doing something different, because arts teachers serve as the resources in their schools for the arts already. They're already doing that, and I think they should continue doing that. I think they should keep doing exactly what they're doing, but that actually it's more about taking the skills that they're learning, in music class or in art class, and bringing them into the regular classroom to do two things. Thing number one is to help support the learning in those other areas, because the arts are good for that. And also second, that often I feel like arts teachers can be siloed because they're getting, they don't see the kids, for elementary, you're seeing them all once a week, but you've got different classes you've got different classes every day. In terms of, if you're teaching band or you're teaching, high school theater, that's the only time they get that content. Whereas if you're teaching English, a lot of times, they're going to have literacy reinforced in their other areas as well, because you have to read to do many things. So it actually offers a space where students might get to practice those skills somewhere else, and not just when they see you for 45 minutes every Monday. So I think that that's what I would say in terms of what I believe the model should look like, is that we should actually be moving the arts into regular classrooms as opposed to the flow the other direction. To teachers who don't teach in the arts, who are like, one more thing, like, why are you making me do this? Like, what is it? I would encourage you to take a risk on it, in all honesty. And I know that that's hard because time is limited, resources are limited, energy is limited. I get all of that, but I would say to really, there is some really good research, and I can send, if you can post an article or anything like that, there's some really good research that says why this works. I'd also encourage you to find a teacher who does this and talk to them. And I would encourage you to think for yourself about your own education. What are the moments that you remember? What are the things that have stuck with you, whether that's second grade or whether it's 12th grade? What are the things that you remember? And usually I guess I can ask, I can ask that question too of those of you who are in the room. For me, the things that I remember, even from before I was interested in the arts, when I was in elementary and middle school, before I did anything with music or theater, I remember when we had to, whenever we had to make something, whenever we had to create something, that's the content I remember. I don't remember, if it was on a test, if I just had to write it down, I don't remember it. And so I think that it's also a way, for non-arts teachers, who are teaching in other content areas, I think it's a matter of saying, here's another tool that you can get your content to stick, and there are ways that you can do this without having to be like a performer or a visual artist yourself.
Yeah, I think a lot of those non-arts teachers are going to will see this or hear a talk about arts integration and think, there's no way I'm going to be a performer. And that's not the idea of this at all. The idea is that you think like an artist. You're not going to become a world famous artist. You're not going to become a world famous musician. It's just you know where those resources are in the school and really bring those forward. So my last question, and then I'll take any questions from the audience. It's not really a question, it's just really a statement of you to expand on it some. STEM to STEAM.
Yeah, so science, technology, engineering, and math. In some places we're trying to work on changing that from STEM to science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. There is tons of research and tons of literature about that. I will say I'm not as familiar with the specifics of the name change necessarily, but I think that it does seem counterintuitive, right, to have the arts be part of what otherwise we kind of think of as like very mathematical, maybe very specific, very technological. I honestly, like I am not a math person. I really got turned off to math as a young person at about the time when girls are often turned off to math. And I think part of it was that I couldn't see the applicability. I could not understand why I had to be able to factor, I still don't know why I had to be able to factor that equation. I still have no idea. And I think that what the arts do with those things are because those are complex concepts that can be really alienating when you come across them the first time. What the arts allow us to do is give us a way to show that information and say, great, we're not just going to talk about why this equation is necessary, we're going to talk about how that will help you build a building, how that will help you create architecture, how that will help you understand perspective so that you can create something that's visually interesting to you. So I think a lot of bringing the arts into STEAM is that for students who are already want to become doctors and they're ready and they've got it and they understand it, like good for them, they may not need that. But for me as a student, I could have really used something to help me relate it to a practical application or just to something that I was already interested in. So a lot of times the arts, when they're asking for writing or performing, they're asking us to make connections to our personal experience, which I work a lot with middle school students, and especially for them, that can be really helpful because otherwise I think it's easy to lose them because they're really focused on the things they're interested in, and the arts help us to capitalize on those interests and things that they already know a lot about.
Right. That's a great answer. By the way, Lauren just mentioned doctors. Here's a statistic that you may not, that our folks may not know. 66% of students who go on to medical school have an arts background. 66%. That's pretty amazing. And so those people who say that arts is frill and arts is on the side, and that I hear that there have been guidance counselors in this state or in other states who have said, well, you can't get into college if you stay in band, orchestra, chorus, theater, dance, visual art. Well, I think you need to tell that to the medical students because they've actually been accepted already with an arts background. So I think it's very important. It's very important. Questions about anybody that's attended in the audience?
As an arts educator, how do you approach your regular ed classrooms and say, hey, how can I support you? How can I, basically be a tool to be utilized? What does that look like? What are the first steps in that process?
Yeah. So the question is about how, as an arts educator, and I'll speak specifically from my kind of space in a nonprofit arts organization, so not as an arts teacher in a school already, just because that's my experience, but I think there are some kind of correlations or parallels there. So the question is about how, as an arts educator, do I come into a classroom that maybe focuses on a different subject and offer the arts as a way to help support that? That's like one of my favorite questions, and I think it's one that not anybody has a perfect answer to. So that is a reality. It's a big challenge. But what I try to do is often I'm coming in because there's some initiative or there's some reason that I'm there. It's not like I've met a teacher at coffee and suddenly we're doing this thing. Although that could be magical too. So if you're out there and you want to do this, my name is just warren@triadstage.org. But a lot of times it's because of something that teachers have been told they have to do, which is not always the easiest way to come in because teachers are told they have to do a lot of things that they may or may not believe are the right thing or the good thing. So I come in and do a lot of listening where I'll say, what are you teaching right now? What is it that you're working on right now? Some of my other favorite questions are things like, what are your students really good at? Like, what is this group that we're going to be working with? What do they excel at? Or like, what do you really struggle with? Like, where are your challenges? What are the things that you'd like for them to be really working on? And sometimes if we're looking at a longer term partnership, I might say something like, where in your curriculum, like what unit do you want to remake? Like what is the unit that you dread getting to every year? Great, let's look at that one and try to find a way that we can make that more exciting for you. So I first go in and ask those questions, try to really get a sense of context. It's incredibly important to know who the students are, what their prior experience is, what their relationship with the teacher is. A lot of their identity markers can be really really important, especially I need, as a white woman coming into a classroom, I need to be very aware of my positionality and my privilege and really be careful about the choices that I'm making. So I really want to know all that information ahead of time. So once we kind of gather that and talk about it, with that information, then I might propose a couple of different options of say, well, from what I'm hearing you say, we want to work on X. So here are a couple of different ways that I might come at that. Do any of those sound like they're interesting to you? So you teach music, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. So I might go into, working with a teacher, I might, if I was doing that, and I'm not as strong with music as I am with theater, but I might say, we could talk about songwriting, so maybe we could look at a way that we could write a song about whatever this process is or whatever this movement was that you're studying in history. Or if that doesn't feel like, or maybe we could look at, a song from this period and we could analyze it and talk about it, and then maybe students could perform pieces of it or make their own soundscape about it. So I might try to give a couple of different options that offer some choices. So not to say, well, great, just because we're teaching the American Revolution, we're obviously going to do it this way, but to try to really get a sense of what works for that teacher, because ultimately my hope whenever I do this work is that the teacher can take what I have and either replicate it or modify it for other units or other times that they teach it. And so if I'm coming in and saying, well, we're going to do this because I like it, that's not effective for that teacher, and it's kind of, quite frankly, like a waste of everyone's time. And so, and that's not true for every single arts partnership, but for myself, I really hope that teachers are walking out of a partnership with me with tools that they can use. So I try to gather a lot of information first, then offer some options. And then I also really like co-teaching. I like saying, great, which part of this would you like to take? Which part of it would you like me to see me do as an artist coming in? And then we try that, and then really also reflect on it and say, how did that go? What did you feel like didn't work? Great, let's talk about how you might do that differely at another time. So it kind of is a sort of a three-part approach like that. Yeah.
Other questions? Okay. All right. Lauren, I'd like for you to just for your last thing, tell us about your work with Triad Stage and what's going on in Triad Stage now, and how people can get in touch with you, teachers in arts or non-arts teachers, administrators, how they can get in touch with you and some of the services that you provide.
Sure. Yeah. So Triad Stage is a regional theater. It's based in Greensboro. We do about 8 productions per year, 4 of which this year are in Greensboro, 4 of which are in Winston-Salem. So we do have student matinees for those programs, so if that's something you're interested in, you can definitely find more information about that at our website. So that is that's been our primary educational offering up until now-ish. So they took a big risk, which was to say that they were going to to add a position for a nonprofit arts organization is a pretty big deal. And so they took the risk of saying, we think that education and learning programming is important enough that we're going to take this risk. So in July, I came on, and we're building lots of programming from the ground up. So we're trying a lot of things, we're doing a lot of pilots. So if any of what I've said today in terms of arts integration is interesting to you, please feel free to reach out, because we are looking for schools to be partners for pilot programs that then we can replicate in other spaces or adjust for other spaces. We're doing a number of things. I would love to be offering arts integration residencies for schools, so I would love to be working with kids for 3 days or a week or longer than that, whatever works for the teacher. And that could be either working with the teacher to plan that, or them saying, hey, I want a 5-day thing that integrates literacy with theater, come do whatever you want. Either one of those options are great. We are also offering, if you're a K through 5 teacher, we're offering some professional development workshops that you do get literacy CEUs for. Those will be starting in January. There'll be 1 a month through next semester. So those are things that you can sign up for through whatever magical thing you use to sign up for things. Wisdomware. That's a good name. We are going to be offering some professional development opportunities as well. And additionally, with that, we are hoping to, for your students, if they're interested, we are also hoping to be launching summer camps. So if you have students that are interested in that, And lastly, we are the host of the Poetry Out Loud program, which is a poetry recitation competition that's for high school students, as well as the August Wilson monologue competition. And I see one of our teachers who's with us for that in the audience, which is exciting. The August Wilson monologue competition also focuses on getting August Wilson's work as a playwright into English classrooms in schools, as well as theater classrooms. So if any of those things are interesting to you, they're available. You can find more information on our website, which is triadstage.org, and you can click on Learning in the top navigation bar, and you can get more information from there. What I would also say is that those programs, unfortunately, do have a fee associated with them. However, if they're interesting to you, we want to be your partner in writing a grant to pay for that program. So reach out whenever you are interested, and we will work with you to find funding to make that happen, because schools have access to funding in ways that arts organizations don't, and vice versa. So it's really good to think about partnering. So we would love, we would love your ideas as well. And if you're like, none of that sounds like it's really great, but I have this other idea, I'd love to hear that too, because our programming is growing, and my goal is to serve needs and interests of teachers and students in GCS. So if those things are not sounding like they're doing that, we would love to hear your input on what you would like to see. So we're still at a point where we are very lucky to be very open about what we can offer and what we can try, and we'd love to have your voices as part of that conversation.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much, Lauren. I appreciate you being here. And Lauren's email address, by the way, is lauren@triadstage.org. In case you want to reach her, you can also reach her by the website as well, www.triadstage.org. All right, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. Arts integration. Let's go out and conquer the world now. We feel like we can. Go out and conquer the world. All right, this has been the second Lyceum. Our next Lyceum will be not in December, but in January, and there will be information. We'll probably put it on the bottom of the screen here for the next Lyceum event, and look forward to seeing you then. All right, thanks so much, everybody.
But I see your truth.